Hi everyone, it's Hirsch Saha here again and reporting from Auckland, New Zealand. Today is 20th of January 2024. Oop, got a hair out of place there. The execs would really hate that. Still out of place. Maybe I'll just leave it. um, this video is a message I wanted to give, which will hopefully contrast from a lot of messages from members of my generation. I'm basically Generation Y, the millennials, the one after me or younger than me, Generation Z, those I think born after 2000, but I'm Y, the millennials, those born between 1980 and 2000, and the one before me is Generation X, basically the baby boomers, and arguably, especially where I'm from, New Zealand, arguably the baby boomers had it the best. When they were growing up, pretty much everything was on the up. They could they didn't have to even go to university, but if they did go to university, hey, they got paid to go to university. Once they got out of university, they were virtually 100% guaranteed a job, and they could get a job just like that. Like I said, even if they hadn't gone to university, and of course they could buy a house like that. Things were much, much, much more affordable than they are today. There was less competition. Things were also not moving so fast like they do today. Yes, I might hear you say, but oh, what about interest rates or mortgage rates back then, which were about 20%, certainly a bit higher than they are today. As I speak, mortgage rates are currently falling here in New Zealand. They are roughly between 6 to 7%. But of course, this just comes down to simple math. Like, I remember a friend of mine who said his dad bought a decent house on the fringes of Wellington, the capital of New Zealand. He bought a decent house, actually, I think it was brand new as well, in the suburb of Kelburn in Wellington. And it was a four-bedroom, two-bathroom house with, I think, about 600 to 700 square meters of land, standalone house. And he bought it for just 48,000 back in 1978. And of course, I realized 48,000 was a bit more back then than it is today. But look at it this way: the same house today, I honestly think would be at least 1.5, 1.6 million, especially if it's brand new. That same house exactly would be 1.5, 1.6 million. If I'm correct, I think the average salary is approximately, I think, 60 to $70,000 in New Zealand today. So, and while the average salary back then in 1978, from what I heard, I think was about I think it was 15 to 18,000, 1.5 to 1.8 thousand. So basically, to buy that house required approximately three and a half years of average salary, right? Whereas today, if that same house is a good 1.5 to 1.6 million, and if the average salary is 60 to $70,000, let's say 65,000, oh my God, that is over 20 years. Uh, Over 20 years of average salary to buy that house compared to what was it, 3 to 4 years back then. So obviously, it's a bit less affordable now. Add to that, not only is it unaffordable housing, you have to pay for university education. You still can't get a job just like that, even after going to university. There's much more competition today. Things are moving very, very fast. There's more traffic. There's more people. There's more congestion. It seems like there's negative things happening all over the world. And of course, there's things like climate change as well. And a lot of people in my generation just seem to blame previous generations, saying, basically everything we're experiencing now is because of what you guys screwed up, whether it is the environment or the housing market or university education becoming saturated, or the economy becoming poorer and poorer and poorer, that they can no longer pay students to go to university, but students in fact have to now pay themselves. They have to pay to go to university, things like that. In a nutshell, problems have skyrocketed and we've become much, much, much poorer. But do I blame previous generations for that? I know it's very tempting for someone in my generation to do so when things are just so much harder on us. And especially in those days when only, one parent had to work and they'll still have a house and everything, and the other parent, usually the mother, could stay at home, take care of the kids. Now you've got both parents working and they're still finding it hard to cut it. And they just can't get out of debt. And some people actually not even having kids because they can't afford them, sadly, or they're having fewer kids, or they're putting off having kids, which is not good for them or the kids themselves. So, yes, all those things are happening today. But honestly, would I blame previous generations? Actually, when I look at it closely, I actually wouldn't, because previous generations, they really didn't mean for this to happen. They really didn't. And if anything, they thought that things would be better today for us here in, say, the 2020s than it was for them back in, say, the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. They actually thought things would be better for us. They worked hard to make it better. And every generation has its own issues, its own unique problems. It's a bit like that saying, change is the only constant. Problems are always there, no matter what. I mean, the problems themselves may change. They might change completely, but there are always problems. Even you go back to, say, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, some things which might even make you laugh today were taken quite seriously then. Like, for example, the threat of nuclear war between the Americans and the former Soviet Union, especially after the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, where we came so close to nuclear war. Especially after events like that, people were really worried that there could be nuclear war, and a part of the world, even a lot of the world, could be devastated by it. And of course that's not so much of a problem. Unfortunately, nuclear weapons is still a bit of a threat. You look at North Korea, you look at Russia, you look at the US, you look at China, even England and France have some, and of course India and Pakistan also have some. But it's not really as much of a threat as it was back then. So it's interesting. Every generation has its own problems, and even if you come to something like climate change, I mean, yes, it's true. Our parents, especially driving those massive boxy cars of the 70s and 80s, they certainly could have done something better for the climate, like driving less or driving small cars or taking public transport or what have you. But they didn't know about climate change. They didn't know about climate change, despite the idea of climate change being in existence since the 1950s. Most people really didn't hear about it much until about the 90s, and even as recent as the 2000s, the mid 2000s, people were still wondering if it was even true. And now they basically do believe it's true because it's happening before their eyes. But people back then didn't know about it. So how could they have done something about it when they didn't know about it? So honestly, do I blame previous generations? I don't, because there were a lot of things that were happening now that they didn't know about, that they would have never have expected. They had their own problems to deal with, as every generation does, and they really thought that things would be better for us. They worked hard, very hard, to make things better for us now. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, it didn't quite work out like that, but that's what they did. So if you really think about it, I don't think it's really any use to blame previous generations for what's happened today. I don't think so. I really don't. But together we must work. We must work together to make it better for all of us, young, middle age, or old. That's what we need to do. Not focusing on the past, but move forward and make things better for everyone on planet Earth. Thank you.